Announcing the arrival of Her Majesty Zarith-Sofiah binti Almarhum Sultan Idris Shah, Permaisuri Johor and Chancellor of University Technology Malaysia, accompanied by the distinguished guests. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good evening. To Her Majesty Raja Zarith-Sofiah binti Almarhum Sultan Idris Shah, Permaisuri Johor and Chancellor of University Technology Malaysia, His Excellency Dr. Adil Muhammad Ali Bahamid, Ambassador of the Republic of Yemen, Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Dr. Saleh Muhammad Noor, Pro-Chancellor of University Technology Malaysia, Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Datin Paduka Siti Sadiah Sheikh Bakir, Pro-Chancellor of University Technology Malaysia, Yang Berbahagia Professor Datuk Dr. Wahid Omar, Vice-Chancellor of University Technology Malaysia, Yang Berhormat Datuk Dr. Muhammad Ridwan bin Muhammad Saleh, Chairman of Yayasan Raja Zarith-Sofiah Negeri Johor, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the CASIS Saturday Night Lecture with Professor Dr. Wan Muhammad Noor Wan Daud, the founder of CASIS. Your Majesty, ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin this event with the recital of Dua. I would like to call upon Mr. Akhrul bin Musa, who is a student of CASIS, to recite the Dua.
Al-Fatiha. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي بنعمته تتم الصالحات، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد المبعوث رحمة للعالمين وهداية للناس أجمعين. نحمدك اللهم على ما أنعمت علينا من النعم بمنك وكرمك يا أكرم الأكرمين. الحمد لله والشكر لله. O Allah, to you belong all praise. We are incapable of enumerating praise of you. You are as you have rendered yourself. We thank you for your protection, security and prosperity, your perfect and everlasting succor and guidance to Her Majesty Permaisuri Johor Raja Zarith-Sofiah binti Almarhum Sultan Idris Shah and those accompanying her for a safe arrival to this blessed place. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وقنا عذاب النار وقنا عذاب النار وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Thank you, Mr. Akhrul, for the dua. Honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, before we invite Her Majesty Raja Zarith-Sofiah to deliver her royal address, please lend your ears to the opening remarks by the Director of the Center for Advanced Studies on Islam, Science and Civilization, CASIS, ETM, Associate Professor Dr. Khalif Muhammad. Please welcome.
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Your Majesty, Yang Maha Mulia Tuanku Raja Zarith Sofiah binti almarhum Sultan Idrisha, Queen of Johor and the Chancellor of UTM. May Allah shower you with the blessing, good health and tranquility. Honorable Pro-Chancellors, Honorable VC of UTM, Professor Dr. Insinyur Wahid Omar, my dear teacher, Professor Dr. Wan Daud, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a great honor that Your Majesty has kindly graced this humble program, Saturday Night Lecture Series, organized by CASIS, Center for Advanced Studies on Islam, Science and Civilization, a Center of Excellence in UTM, in collaboration with Yayasan Raja Zarith Sofiah and Yayasan Taqlid and Hakim. The Saturday Night Lecture Series started almost 30 years ago at the International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization, ISTAC, founded and directed by Yang Mulia Tan Sri Professor Syed Muhammad Natib Al-Atas, a world-renowned Malay Muslim thinker and reformer. The lecture was his deliberation of the great ideas contained in many of his books, which were read by contemporary Muslim scholars all over the world. The lecture series at ISTAC was abruptly suspended in 2002 due to certain unfortunate circumstances, and it was only resumed in 2012 when Tan Sri Professor Syed Muhammad Natib Al-Atas was appointed as Distinguished Visiting Professor at CASIS UTM. He then delivered the lecture series for a period of 3 years. SNL is about honoring a great scholar of Islam. It is a celebration of knowledge and scholarship. The spirit that brings us all here tonight is the love of knowledge and the scholar who contributed immensely with practical ideas to solve the current predicament faced by Muslim societies. SNL, Saturday Night Lecture Series, reflect the culture of knowledge that is lacking in many parts of the Muslim world. It brings people together from all walks of life, not only for the sake of personal quest for beneficial knowledge, but also to find answers and solutions to the contemporary problems facing the Ummah. In this regard, UTM has contributed significantly in maintaining this culture. Congratulations, UTM. SNL will be recorded in history, perhaps, as the longest lecture series ever held in the Malay world, which has received tremendous support from various interested and learned parties. Its audience includes academics, diplomats, politicians, administrators, public servants, professionals, educators, activists, and students alike, regardless of age. The lecture discussed fundamental elements constituting the worldview of Islam, epistemic frameworks, the civilizational challenges confronting the Ummah internally and externally, and provide intellectual means and solutions on how to address them. Professor Dr. Wan Daud, the founder and first director of CASIS, is the co-founder of ISTAC. he was invited by Tan Sri Professor Syed Muhammad Aqib Al-Atas to establish his tech upon his return from the United States. He had the privilege to have learned from two giants in Islamic thought, that is Fazlur Rahman and Syed Muhammad Aqib Al-Atas. Last year, Her Majesty and Tan Sri Professor Al-Atas have agreed on the idea to establish Syed Muhammad Aqib Al-Atas Distinguished Chair in Islamic Thought, and the first holder will be none other than Professor Wan Muhammad Nurwan Daud. Let's pray that this new initiative to strengthen CASIS and UTM will be materialized soon, with the support of all of you, morally and financially, inshallah. We would like to express our utmost gratitude and appreciation to Your Majesty Raja Zarith Sofiah binti Almarhum Sultan Idris Shah Permaisuri of Johor for your gracious and kind support to CASIS missions and activities. And last but not least, special thanks to all parties involved in preparation and smooth running of this event. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Khalif Muhammad. Ampun Tuanku, dimohonkan kita. With much pleasure, let us invite Yang Bahagia Profesor Datuk Dr. Wahid bin Umar to accompany Her Majesty Raja Zarith Sofiah on stage.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin my speech by saying that I'm here tonight to show my full support for CASIS and what CASIS has achieved up to now. It is my hope that CASIS will achieve much, much more in the future, inshallah. It is also wonderful for me to be part of this gathering tonight, and like all of you, I'm looking forward to listen to the last lecture by Professor Dr. Wan Muhammad Nurwan Daud on worldviews, knowledge, and civilizational development. At a recent forum Perdana, which I attended in Johor Bahru, I learned that jihad or struggle is not confined to fighting in holy wars. There are other acts which are also considered as jihad. Looking after our parents, looking after protecting orphans and single mothers, and seeking knowledge. In a world where there are far too many armed conflicts, wars, displacement of people, hatred, confusion, ignorance, and misunderstandings, we now need, more than ever before, learned men and women who can share the knowledge with us, and wise centers such as CASIS, as well as all the other Islamic schools and centers at other universities, must and should continue to exist. We need your guidance. I first met Professor Dr. Wan Muhammad Noor Daud and Professor Dr. Muhammad Zaini Uthman at a roundtable conference at Ditchley Park, Oxford, England in May 2012. The conference had been jointly organized by UTM and the Oxford Centre for Islamic Studies, or OXIS. And the theme of the conference was Sciences in Muslim Societies, Past and Present. Apart from Professor Dr. Wan Muhammad Noor and Professor Dr. Muhammad Zaini, other professors from UTM included Professor Azrai Kasim, Professor Rosalinda Alias, Professor Azlan Abdul Rahman, and Professor Jazmi. And the Malaysians whom UTM had invited included Dr. Fifi Al-Akiti, a lecturer of Islamic Studies at the Faculty of Theology, University of Oxford, Tan Sri Dr. Ahmad Tajuddin Ali, President of the Academy of Sciences Malaysia, Tan Sri Dr. Salih Muhammad Noor, UTM Pro-Chancellor, and former Director General of the Forest Research Institute, Dr. Professor Dr. Zakri, the Science Advisor of the Malaysian Prime Minister. And those whom OXIS invited included Sir Terence English, the first surgeon to perform heart transplants, Professor George Saliba from Columbia University, Dr. Mahmoud Abdul Rahim, Kuwait Foundation for the Advancement of Sciences, Professor Peter Foreman, University of Manchester, Dr. Sajad Rizvi from the University of Exeter, and Dr. Michael Murray, Templeton University. And the reason why I mention all of these names, especially those who are not part of UTM or who are not from Malaysia, is to emphasize the fact that this conference was made up of prominent academic figures and those involved in sciences from the Western world. I was seated next to Dr. Farhan Nizami, the director of OXIS, and the conference began with its first plenary session. As a non-academician, I looked at all the names of those present and I was in complete awe and fear, a bit like how I feel now. Unfortunately, however, it was too late for me to run away. Again, I can't run away tonight. I have to stay here. But the conference began, and many of the figures I mentioned above spoke. And then Professor Dr. Wan Muhammad Noor spoke, and so did Professor Dr. Muhammad Zaini. And the first question I asked myself was, why have I not heard about these Malaysian scholars before? I felt that all Malaysians who were there at that conference were on par with the OXIS delegation. And since attending that conference, I've often wondered why we Malaysians do not give the due respect and acknowledgement which our very own local scholars deserve. As regards Islamic scholars, why do we flock in the thousands to hear lectures and talks given by foreign scholars and speakers, some of whom have dubious academic qualifications or none, but ignore our own born and bred scholars, such as the two gentlemen I mentioned? At this point, I would like to say to the other scholars and lecturers of CASIS that the reason I have not mentioned your names is not because you're not as well qualified as these two gentlemen, but because I've not had the pleasure to meet you yet. And I do apologize if I have offended anyone. Perhaps there'll be a chance for me to have another talk at CASIS, and I can learn more about scholars and the lecturers at CASIS and the work that they do. As I said earlier, I find that the disinterest and the little acknowledgement given to our own local scholars rather puzzling. This is not to say that we should not listen to foreign Islamic scholars or read their books, but that we must have a balance in receiving knowledge from both foreign and local ones. Tonight is the last of a series of lectures which focuses on worldviews, knowledge, and civilizational development. I would like to suggest that part of the global civilizational development has to include the use of social media. It is a phenomenon that cannot be ignored. Billions of people around the world use social media, from students to politicians, even presidents. Everyone has a voice. Everyone expresses his or her opinion. I too have been using social media for about 11 years now, but reading comments and online news give all of us an insight into the way we live, the way we work, what our beliefs are. Everyone shares photos of their families, where they go on holiday, what they do when they're at work. It is also through social media that we notice an increasing polarization in countries in the West, such as in the United Kingdom. And sadly, we see something similar here in Malaysia. When I read posts and comments made by us, fellow Malaysian Muslims, I sense an increasing disrespect for our fellow citizens who are of different ethnicities and religions. The combination of ignorance together with arrogance is a dangerous one. And sometimes it's quite apparent that some of us will make judgments according to just one verse from the Quran or few hadith we have found on Google. When I'm unsure about what we should do as Muslims or about certain issues of which I have no knowledge, I will not go to Google, but I will actually ask senior officials from the Johor Islamic Religious Council. So before I flew here to Kuala Lumpur, I asked about the way that we Muslims should behave towards others of other faiths. And I was told to look up verse 8 from Surah Mumtahana, which says, Allah does not forbid you from those who do not fight you because of religion and do not expel you from your homes, from being righteous towards them and acting justly towards them. Indeed, Allah loves those who act justly. And among the hadith are the following. He who torments non-Muslim torments the Messenger of Allah. Accordingly, he who torments the Messenger of Allah torments Allah. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ also said that whoever oppresses a dhimmi, that is a non-Muslim who lives in a Muslim country, or loads of work that is over his strength, or takes something away from him by force, I am his foe on the day of judgment. That is from Hadith Abu Dawud. So from all of these, we see that the role of CASIS and academic scholars of Islam is most important. It is to guide those of us who may be misled or who do not have deep knowledge of our own religion. The other things which I've noticed when I go through the posts and comments on social media is that we have a tendency, and I'm talking about us Muslims, to pass judgments on people based on how they are dressed. I'm a victim of one of those. So we like to look at pictorial things, we like to look at pictures, but when it comes to reading, when it comes to seeking knowledge, when it comes to lectures like this, we tend to shy away. I don't know whether it's because we're not a reading culture or we just don't have the time. But that is why I feel strongly that CASIS and other centers have a role to play, because we need guidance. The other thing is that I think it's wrong when we show disrespect for those of other races or other religions, because we live in one country and we should actually be united. And I don't think there's anything that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did in his lifetime, or what he said to his Sahaba after he passed away, which shows that we should act differently or show disrespect to others. I'd like to end by asking and saying that please, everyone who is at CASIS, continue with the work that you've done. especially Professor Dr. Wan Noor, and continue the legacy left from the establishment of ISTAC. We live in a time of fitna, as we discussed with His Excellency, the Ambassador of Yemen, and other distinguished guests just now. There's a lot of misinformation, misguidance. We don't look into ourselves, we don't consider being spiritual as important as what we look outwardly. I remember once I had posted, or my photographer, who's somewhere here, had posted photos of me in a hospital, maternity ward, at the hospital Sultan Aminah in Johor Bahru. And it was because a bank had very kindly and generously donated an ultrasound machine. There were no comments about that ultrasound machine, which could actually save lives of both mothers and their babies. There were no comments about the generosity of the bank. Instead, there were comments about how I look. So I've come to the point where I'm quite frustrated with social media, but I continue to go on, and I think a few days ago I put on my Facebook status that I'm coming to support CASIS and that I'm against all the fatwa or dictates that have been issued by what we discussed just now, Imam Google, Ustaz Google, Ustazah Google. It's very difficult to, it's very easy to do that, but I have learned that true scholars are those who have teachers, real teachers, and who have published works, who have learned and spent many decades of their lives pursuing knowledge, seeking knowledge, and then imparting that knowledge to their students. So with that, I hope that CASIS, with the grace of God, inshallah, will continue to go on, to thrive, and please help us, guide us, and tell us what we should do and not do, because you are all scholars in different fields of Islamic studies. And this is a time when we desperately need people to guide us. Thank you. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Your Majesty. And Honorable Professor Dr. Wahid Omar, the Vice Chancellor, will now present a token of appreciation to Her Majesty Raja Zarith Sofiah. Thank you, Yang Bagi Dato' Wahid. Your Majesty, ladies and gentlemen, may we begin our CASIS Saturday night lecture by inviting to the stage Yang Berusaha Professor Dr. Tatiana Denisova, who will introduce and moderate the session for Yang Berusaha Professor Dr. Wan Muhammad Noor Wan Daud. Please welcome Professor Tatiana, Professor Wan Muhammad Noor.
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Your Majesty, our all distinguished guest. I'm a bit worried because I first time become MC today. Yeah, so thank you very much for your great support. Thank you very much to come today to be with us. And I would like to give already place for Provan and to continue our series of lectures, Saturday night lectures, with our last topic today. I think after the lecture it will be time for questions. I would like to ask you to give this question in written form. Everybody can hear us from behind? Okay, thank you very much.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Your Majesty, Tuanku Pulang Suri Johor, Chancellor of UTM, Excellency Tan Sri Fiamat, Pro-Chancellors, Vice Chancellor Datuk Dr. Wahid Omar, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm indeed honored personally to have Tuanku Pulang Suri raising our question tonight and giving all support that we all need, not only RZS-CASIS, and all academic institutions in this country. We need support from everywhere we can get, particularly from the most important and most crucial sectors of our society. Thank you very much. Tonight, the lecture centers more of the elaboration of what I've been talking about for the last 3 weeks. Not to provide solution for some of our problems, because we hope that inshallah in the coming semesters we are going to deliberate more on some of the solutions. In the last 3 weeks, we were talking about the importance of worldview and how worldviews, even though it operates in a mind, are indeed the most practical things that human beings can do. We mentioned that in Islam, for example, Aqidah operates only in the mind. But with wrong Aqidah, nothing of ibadat or akhlaq or muamalat will have any effect. Aqidah operates nowhere except in the mind, in the soul. Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, the great founder of modern Turkish Republic, had a teacher. His teacher is Ziya Gökalp, who died in 1924, who wrote a very influential book called The Principles of Turkism. In that book, he quoted a French playwright, his contemporary, called Edmond Rostand. Edmond Rostand said that although it was very useful for a military commander to know how many soldiers, weapons and ammunition the opposing enemy had, it was even more useful for him to know the philosophy of the enemy's army. In truth, when two armies and two nations are at war, the philosophies of the two sides are the principal factors determining which is to be victorious. So he was emphasizing the worldview, the philosophies of a particular army or nation in determining the success or defeat of a particular war. After that, we have many other scholars. One of them is Gilbert K. Chesterton, who died in 1936. He was an Anglican, a Catholic theologian, a philosopher, a playwright. He said that the most practical and important thing about a man is his view of the universe, of God, of man, and as in existence. And the worldview of Islam is inculcated by the Prophet Muhammad SAW, who developed, educated a group of human beings, men and women, to be very special human beings. We know this. but one Italian Orientalist, a prince, a duke, by the name of Prince Leona de Tiona Setani, who died in 1935. He made a very important observation of how the Prophet Muhammad SAW succeeded in inculcating that particular worldview, which developed a uniquely able, ethical, and spiritual group of men and women. He said that these men and women were the true moral heirs of the Prophet, the future apostles of Islam, the proper trustees of all that Muhammad had revealed unto the men of God and women of God. Into these men and women, through their constant contact with the Prophet and their devotion to him, they had already entered a new mode of thought and feeling, loftier and more civilized than any they had known before. They had really changed for the better from every point of view. And later on, as statesmen and generals in the most difficult moments of the war of conquest, they gave magnificent and undeniable proof that the ideas and doctrines of Muhammad had been seed cast on fruitful soil and produced a body of men and women of the highest worth. They were the depositories of the sacred text of the Quran, which they alone knew by heart. They were the zealous guardians of the memory of every word and bidding of the Prophet, the trustees of the moral heritage of Muhammad. These men formed the veritable stock of Islam, from whom one day was to spring the noble band of the first jurists, theologians, and the traditionalists of the Muslim society. What the Prophet did was to inculcate the right worldview, understanding who man is, who God is, what are we supposed to do here, and how to do them. One of his greatest companions and his son-in-law, his nephew, Ali bin Abi Talib, he was a scholar, a general, a husband, a son-in-law. Having the right worldview made him an able leader. He wrote a long letter to his governors. One of them is Malik Haris al-Ashtar. In this letter, we can see how the worldview is reflected when he wants his governors to behave properly, ethically, not only for Muslims, but for all non-Muslims also, because in Egypt at that time, there were still many Copts. Later on, Abdul bin Yahya, the chief secretary to the Umayyad, who died in 750, he's like the KSN now in our times. He wrote a letter to all the secretaries of the Umayyad dynasty, from Khurasan to Egypt, from Syria to the Hijaz, telling them that they must reflect the proper aqidah, the proper ethical code of the Muslims, for the rich, for the poor, for the Muslims and non-Muslims. Later on, in the time of Abbasid, General Tahir bin Hussein, who was not only a general but he was a governor, who helped Ma'mun to attain his power on the throne, defeating his brother Al-Amin. General Tahir wrote a long letter to his son, General Abdullah bin Tahir, who later on became governor of Egypt. In all these letters, we saw the reflection of that worldview. And all these people were proven to be ethical, able, and qualified leaders in every field. What we were trying to say in this lecture before was that worldviews rooted in Aqidah, which make us understand who we are, who Allah is, who is the Prophet, and how we are supposed to deal with the world, who are our friends, our enemies, in the right and proper manner. Later on, in a time of great calamity, great dissension, there was this great prime minister called Hassan bin Ali Ishaq, entitled Nizamul Mulk At-Tusi. He was the prime minister to Sultan Al-Farsalan and Sultan Malik Shah of the Seljuk dynasty, centered in Khurasan and Persia. He established Nizamiyah College which employed 27 of the most prominent scholars of his time, including Al-Ghazali, Al-Kushairi, and Al-Jubayni, and many others. He was a Hafiz for the Quran by the age of 11. He was a teacher of Hadith also. He taught Hadith at his own university. So you could see, for example, this worldview inculcates love for knowledge, respect for scholars, yet able to become good prime ministers. When Malik Shah succeeded his father, Sultan Pasalan, he invited all the key leaders of the empire to write him a book of guidance, to help him guide, to guide him how to be a proper ruler. Malik Shah, Mithal Muluk, in the beginning of his book called Siyasat Muhammad, the book of government, mentioned what Sultan Malik Shah demanded from all his scholars and his administrators. And let me read what Mithal Muluk said. He said, in the year 1086 AD, of course we converted to the Gregorian era, Abu Fatah Malik Shah Muhammad, glorifier of the world and of the faith, right hand of the commander of the faithful, issued a sublime imperial command to his servant and to several others, instructing each one of them to give thought to the condition of the country and to consider whether there is in our age and time anything out of order, either in the Dewan, the court, the royal palace, or the audience hall, anything whose principles are not being observed by us or are unknown to us, whether there are any function which kings before us have performed and we are not fulfilling. Consider further what have been the laws and customs of kings and kingship followed in the past time by the Seljuk sultans. Make a digest of them and present them to our judgment. We shall then reflect upon them and give orders that hereafter affairs of religious and worldly should proceed in accordance with their proper rules. What is remediable, we shall remedy. We shall see that every duty is discharged correctly and according to God's commands, and that all wrong practices are discontinued. Since God has given us His consummate grace and bestowed the world and the kingship of the world upon us, and subdued all our enemies, henceforth nothing in our empire must exist or happen that is deficient or disordered or contrary to the religion of Islam. That Sultan has a right worldview, and that Sultan is a leader of every department everywhere else. With the right worldview, you know how to proceed, to request from scholars and leaders how to help you to do your duties. What we have been trying to say, Tuanku, is that worldviews, although they operate in the mind, is tremendous practical implication, personally and collectively. And of course, the book written by Siyasat Muhammad, which is in Persian, but we translated into English by Orientalists as well, is very, very popular. And according to many scholars, that book by Mithal Muluk has been used as a Bible of administration by leaders in Iran, in the Mughal Empire, as well as in the Ottoman Empire. Because it advises the rulers how to govern based on the philosophical, religious, and ethical principles of Islam, but also it took into consideration what the early foreign Islamic Iranian rulers were doing. This Mithal Muluk. We said later on in our lectures that the worldview of Islam is based on knowledge. And scholars, Muslim and non-Muslim, have agreed unanimously that the religion of Islam and its revelation is characterized by knowledge. It's very interesting because no other religion and revelation is characterized as such. Professor Rosenthal, a very brilliant scholar of Jewish origin, he has translated the Muqaddimah of Ibn Khaldun, but he wrote in 1970 a book called Knowledge Triumphant, the concept of knowledge in Islam, in which he made that observation. He said that of all other civilizations, Islam is the one that is characterized by knowledge. That's very interesting. And of course, in our Aqidah, whether of the Maturidi or of the Ash'ari that we are here in the Malay world, we are Ash'ari. But even as Ash'ari, we study the works of Maturidi. In this book of Aqidah, they mention that knowledge of realities can be known for certain, as opposed to the Sofiah. And tonight, I want to spend slightly more time on who are the Sofiah who are mentioned in our Aqidah, that our scholars agree to oppose with regard to knowledge. Because they say that in Islam, knowledge of things can be known for certain. And knowledge of things can be known through reason, through sense perception, and through